For this recording, I just need to get some things off my head. Some things that honestly that are hard to swallow at this given point in time. The first thing that comes to mind is perhaps the failure of my midterm for my marketing class, mainly due to its way it's being done. To give some background, basically for our midterm, we are expected to work with a group to make a presentation to present to the class when midterms come up. The problem is with that I at least try to see within it, that our grades are meant to show how we are as individuals, not communicating group efforts. And the result of that is, if you are working within a group, there are one of three options that are going to happen to you. Either you're going to get such a high grade that it was deserved for it, because your group did well and you put in the efforts that was warranted for it. The other option is you get a high grade, but you didn't really do that much work. Maybe your group members took over. They were too controlling, so you never got a part within it. There might have been too many people in the group to the point where there were not anyone. There were too many people, so there were, how you say, too many jobs. Just to get my mind straight. There were so little jobs for so many people. We'll put it like that. But a third, which at this given point is the most likely option for me, that your group didn't put in the efforts, so as a result, you get a low grade for the lack of efforts that they presented. Now, either you yourself put in the efforts, but your group members didn't, or you didn't put in the effort yourself, so you got the bad grade A. Anyways, and unfortunately, I'm kind of in the boat where I've tried. Like, even I was the last one on our conversation to post anything about the assignments, asking questions about what's next, but no one has contacted anyone. In total, we have 4 people, including me. Not a single person has come out and spoken about it. So I don't know if they have a secondary thing that they're freaking doing, or none of them are doing anything, which I think is probably the more likely of the few options. And it kind of makes sense as well, you know, because even when I had a small little group activity with them, there were 2 members of the group that basically took care of everything without really providing the other group members with any job of sorts. And honestly, if it gets down to that point, like slowly it's getting down a rabbit hole, then another rabbit hole, then another rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is, let's say I go to my group and they still say nothing. Then I go to the teacher. If she can't do anything, I go down to someone that's even higher than her, which I wouldn't expect it be going down that sort of rabbit hole. But at this point with this school, it has been very hairy with the teachers, even just because this school, in a sense, is kind of in a state where they might fail, or this school has the possibility to close down. Like student body itself has actually been on a steep decline. Between 2019 and 2025, they lost roughly half their student body. And that's the scariest thing to see. And if it keeps on declining anymore, honestly, I don't really know what to freaking do. But honestly, for now, that is probably the least of my worries. The school closing down, just simply trying to cope with my studies and just the typical things where we have so much work that we need to do. That's always a stressor, but I think the thing that really gets me and thoughts that I've had from last semester that I still agree with that as college students, we will never be enough. The thing is, the situation that I'm in, it should be the most perfect one for your studies. No job, and only has its classes, and only the only thing that probably would make it better if I lived on the campus and not traveling back and forth like 30, 40 minutes each day in the snow, which does take up a lot of time. But and a person that's willing to give up all of his free time and all of his weekends to do that. But the problem is that I always find that even though I have so much time to do it, I'm to the edge of it. Like I'm either always right at the edge of it all, or I'm forced to work even nights during the week to catch up for lost work. Like maybe I'm not the most efficient person in the world, but at the same time, I think I generally have a lot. Like for example, to cut down on time for some of my readings, I'll actually have like reader bots actually read them to me. And even with me having that done, it takes a good for some of my readings, an hour and a half. And that's not even some of the worst ones. Like I have some that I think it was only one that was about 2 hours. And on top of that, we're meant to be working on projects for these classes. We're meant to be doing the homework for these classes, doing our own studying, looking at the syllabus, which doesn't take too much time, so I don't know why I complain about it. The point of all of that, saying all of that, is just to show that even in the situations that we're in, even if we have all the time in the world and really nothing holding us back in terms of time, like we're given the most best possible outcome, it still isn't enough. Like there still isn't a point where I will say to my parents that, hey, you mind if I tag along to Walmart? Because that's something that's actually refreshing to me. Just simply going to the grocery store just to get out of the house because I haven't seen daylight for 2, 3 days. Even as of this recording, I don't think I've gotten out of the house 3 days, Friday to Monday. And it's sad. But the fact is, even though I have all the time in the world, there's just so much work that there's not a single moment where I can say, I can take a break now and do something I want. Like, there are books that even I wish I could read or listen to be honest, at this point, to save time. I don't have the time for that. I haven't had the time for that in a very long time. And that's kind of the thing with college. We are never enough. The actions we do are never enough. And you know what? That's why they have things like curves. That's why they have things that boost the grades of the students, you know? But I would say my major problem this semester, to be honest, last semester wasn't too awfully bad now that I realize it, partially because I could rely on myself for a lot. The problem is now I do have quite a few classes now where this is required that you work with other people, and I've faced so many problems with having so many people to rely on. And that's kind of the problem when you, at least in my findings, when you have to rely on people constantly and not yourself or just directions that the teacher has given you for yourself, it's more inclined to fail, at least my perspective. Like half the time I can do this shit by myself. Like I could probably do hearsay like that marketing project by myself. And I get that it would take a lot for it. But honestly, I just think she even herself questions. Like I know she's like saying to us in class, I know I think students would generally prefer this project over taking a test, you know. Uh, it's either this test or this project that you do with a group. So we're doing the project, or you're not gonna have any say in it. That's the last part, of course, she wouldn't flat out say, but she actually was saying that I think it's better to have a project with others than having a test. And the problem I find with that is it's not so much having a project because I feel like if she scales it down a little bit and allows enough time for it, like I know time is of concern, but if we simply dumb down the projects and allow for lower time, because these presentations are meant to take up to 10 to 15 minutes a piece, if we dumbed it down to something that only took 5 minutes, we could get it done within 2 class days like she intends for individuals. And the thing is, when we are in these groups, we have a group captain. So even more, our voices as individuals are suppressed, and we just have to rely on the group leader to speak on our behalf. And in reality, if we, like me and our person in our group from last class, are hearsay not being involved, they're not trying to get us into it, they're not asking our feedback. Those aren't our voices, it's the two people of the other side of the group. And that's the problem with that. These classes are meant to show us as individuals how we perform individually. That isn't the case when you have a group setting like this. Now, I can get it. I'll compare it to my economics class, which has groups. But the main difference is any group activity isn't a major part of a grade and only counts at most as an in class assignment grade, participation grade, whatever you want to call it, or homework. And even then, he gives us time in class for it. To me, that's well done. Bravo, clap of the hands, sort of ordeal. Like, that's fine. That's such a low part of a grade that if we don't get along with the group, it won't affect us too much. But the problem is when we have these giant midterm groups, and I get it's marketing and you'll have to work with ours, but I feel like my economics teacher, that's more of a something in actual class that we should be doing. It becomes a problem for the midterm when it's something that she even says herself will be heavily graded and will be very strictly graded. Because let's face it, the midterm. Like what do you expect? But and to boot, it's not groups that I would choose. And I get in the real world, we're not gonna have the luxury of maybe choosing our partners, choosing the individuals we work with. But in a setting like this, where grades matter beyond all else, where we are made to feel like if we aren't doing good for grades, we are failing ourselves. Give us the best possible outcome. Don't make us here say, you know, get into groups that will cause failure. Like, if we don't get along with the individuals in a classroom setting, then, you're just kind of setting up for failure in the classroom. And I get it's realistic for the real world, but in reality, maybe we address it in a different way to difficult people. Maybe a different class that tries to deal with difficult people, or even trying to deal with it in the class itself. But for major assignments, if we're not getting along with our group mates, then it's doomed to fail us as people, as colleagues. We are doomed to fail if we can't get along with our group mates. And still, this kind of brings me back to another thought that I may have mentioned in the past, but there was a teacher, it's my communications teacher, who's basically teaching us how to public speak. Now, for our current assignments, we are supposed to make our first major speech is going to be called our introductory speech, where we are made to basically get one of our classmates, talk to them outside class, and actually learn about them and create a speech about them. It's that outside of the speech part that I wouldn't have even been talking about if he didn't add one bit that someone actually sexually got someone in his class. I think it was many years ago, but still got sexually assaulted while in meeting in the group. And to me, that is appalling to hear that. Well, he's warning us about it, but as an instructor, as a professor, as someone that's a teacher, you should make sure your children's or your students' safety is of the most priority. And I think the simple answer to this would have been like simply, I think if we would have gotten maybe about 30 minutes each in class, which we are possibly given, or even 2 days, it would have been so much better off for us because he would be there, our peers would be around. If anything happened of the sort, the teacher and all of our peers in a very tight niched setting, classroom, he would be able to stop it. But by willingly keeping it the way that it is, and I get, again, it's the real world, and this shit can happen. But I didn't pose the same question answer that we're meant to be in a safe environment in our schooling. And that should also extend to not only in class time, but also out of class time. If you're making us do assignments that require us to go out and do something, it should be required that it's a safe thing to do. And by saying things that, oh, well, you see, this boy and a girl, they got sexually assaulted once. I'm not going to bother to change it. So just be careful. I'm just warning you now here that this potentially could happen. Make sure you're safe by yourself. And I think that responsibility also is on the teacher themselves because if they're being this meeting was caused and created by the teacher because of an assignment, it's also them to blame for it. And I just realized after saying all this shit that how honestly fucked up my school is. And I'm sorry to swear, but let's face it, a lot of this is appalling behavior. Like, not only so currently my school stands where so to say before that my school was actually planning to cut 30 different teachers at one point because the school is, I think, like something like five or so million dollars in debts at least. It honestly maybe it was in the billions. I don't really know. It's a decent sized school, but not that big. I assume it would be millions, but and bad financial choices. Financially, this school is very bad off. And from a leadership standpoints, it's still kind of unknown, but last semester they were planning to cut 30 teachers and also I think it was through October to November, the dean had was planning to retire by the end of the semester. He left and did nothing between basically October to, well, it would be December actually, doing absolutely nothing. And apparently, I don't even know if someone stepped in. Someone had to, but it wasn't the dean himself that was supposed to be there. We've got a new person, and so far there's nothing said, which in some instances might be worse. Because for all we know, this school could say, "Hey, we're closing our doors tomorrow. You have no school to go to, so don't bother coming." And then what? We're still entitled to an education, so people are going to be suing up the ass to get to the school. But we don't know if that's going to happen tomorrow. And that's kind of the thing. We're very much in the dark. We don't know when or if the teachers are still going to be cut because nothing's been said. And as well, I should I should mention that there were teachers that would say something. And I think that fear, and that's kind of the thing, the lingering problems, the cutting of the teachers affected the teachers so much that they were beyond subpar with their performance. They were very nervous for their job's sake. And as a result, a lot of them were grading, a lot of them were even expressing to their students that they're very nervous that I'm going to lose my job. They're flat out saying to the students. And I just keep in mind, I just came in the fall semester, so I was basically going into a collapsing school, a burning building, if you want to put it in that sense. And honestly, this is what happens when there's so much uncertainty and so much bad teaching and practices within the school going on. And I've tried to do my part a little bit. There are so many people, they do like tours around the school. So when I'm like sitting in the halls, I might see a group of kids actually coming around just to, well, take a tour. And they're asking, "How do you have a lot of work?" I'll say yes. But I say to myself, I wish I could say so much more. And I have created, even I've gone to the point where I create fake emails, well, technically real email addresses, and I actually went on Google so my name would stay anonymous. I would actually type up just some things about the school and actually post it online. They were never false. And they're generally, like my old teachers would say, this information is all online, so I'm not lying. But I feel bad for any student that has to go to the school in the current state it is, as unknown as it is. And I just hope that by making these recordings, I'm not even saying the school, just so I'm not targeted. Of course, when I post these, and I'm not even saying the school either, which the reason I don't do that is because it, of course, can be on me. Even though I don't share my name on, of course, the channels as well. I do this for, of course, my own protection. And these, again, these recordings are meant as a self exercise, as a way of relieving stress, and also just trying to develop my voice in a sense, especially now when I need it more than ever to be able to speak in a very powerful tone. It's just, there's just a lot of stuff. Like, it just feels like ever since I've gone to college, it's been almost nothing but problems, false promises, and little hope for change. Well, as it stands, it is currently a Monday, and I have tons of work to do, and my next step is macroeconomics. I just hope if anyone does end up finding out the school, either by future recordings, past recordings, or even just by an individual knowing my voice and knowing, connecting the dots to some of the things I'm saying in these recordings, even though I don't have a following, really. I think as of this moment, I have like one subscriber, which, hey, if you're watching this, thank you. Thank you for subscribing, which is honestly a shock to me. But if anyone does find out about the school and it's already out in the open, I say go right ahead and say what I'm saying out. Even share my name if you really want to. If you find out who I am, who my school is. Because honestly, I want people to know that this stuff is happening at this school and that even as a student, I would never recommend someone going to my school because potentially it could collapse. At the most, can collapse. Thank you. Thank you to whoever listens, even though it's just all ranting. Anyways.